Welcome to Game of Thrones, the show where everyone you ever cared or loved about dies. Love this show. How's it going, everybody? I'm Tom Grossi, and this is another episode of Game of Toms. We are reviewing Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 5, The Door. The Door. This episode ripped my heart out and threw it out the door! I got so many emotions right now. I have, and all of them are sad. All of these, except the look that Tormund gives Brienne. But other than that, everything's very, very sad. It's like, it's just like, oh man, all right, this person dies, okay, that's sad. All right, but, oh, let's kill another puppy, because that's good. And you killed Hodor? How could you kill Hodor? He's the one guy who's just a simple guy. We'll get there. Let's start off with the very beginning here. And a much anticipated meeting between Sansa and Littlefinger, which was a very interesting meeting because we've always seen Littlefinger in this position of power in which he is always in control. He always knows what to say to get himself out of trouble, to keep that kind of power. And he's kind of speechless when it comes to Sansa. And Sansa has learned to kind of play the game at this point. And she kind of is blaming Littlefinger, and rightfully so, for everything that's happened to her, because he's the one who dropped her off with Ramsay, and had all of those terrible, awful things happen to her was because of him. So, an interesting bit there. Littlefinger, of course, giving Sansa kind of a hint with the Tullys and what's going on with the River Run, and that maybe you can get help there, which she's going to lie about to Jon later. So maybe Littlefinger is not completely out of control when it comes to Sansa. But an interesting opening scene. And then we had UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Children, between Arya and that other girl, in which it was a really cool, well-choreographed fight scene. And I think everyone now wants to see Game of Thrones on Broadway, because that made the episode a 10 out of 10 right off the bat, because that was fantastic. That was a good, 5-6 minutes of just kind of a recap of the first couple seasons on the stage, which was weird to watch, but you can see that Arya isn't no one. She says that she is, she's has no desires or anything like that, but you can see when they're making fun of her father on stage that it really affects her. And she does kind of have an issue with the faceless men and like the morality about it, because they are the faceless men are really cool, but they're essentially glorified mercenaries in this world, in that people come to them, they give them a lot of money and say, hey, I need this person killed. And Arya even has an issue with that and saying, Lady Crane, the person that I'm supposed to kill, she seems like a fine person, whatever. And she kind of deduces also that it's the younger actress that is paying for this person to be killed. And it's kind of, again, showing that Arya doesn't really belong in this world. Maybe she can become an awesome badass assassin, but, you're looking at last season, she hides Needle, her sword. She hides it behind the rocks. She has that painful grimace on her face when she's watching her father, kind of be portrayed as a bumbling idiot. That she is still Arya Stark, no matter how much she's trying to push that away or push that down. So that was an interesting bit, and I think that by the end of the season, we're really going to see Arya come to a decision as in, I am going to be with them or I'm not going to be with them, and I have a feeling she's going to choose kind of her family and going back to them, but now having all of these skills that she's learned with the Faceless Men. The first big revelation of the night, by far, this was a revelation episode, in that the Children of the Forest, those little green people who have been mentioned before. We saw them, of course, 2 seasons ago when they first met Bran. If you haven't read the book, so this was we're just reading from like the first book and things like that, because we're way off book at this point. That the Children of the Forest are basically these creatures that existed, and then men come along and they kind of go to war with the children of the forest, and they're killing people, they're killing the children, they're invading their land, they're chopping down their trees, and you get the revelation that the children of the forest created White Walkers. In this scene with the tree, and you have that symbol again, and they're shoving a piece of, it looked like dragon glass into the White Walker's chest, showing that the dragon glass is a part of them, but it's also the only thing that can destroy them. So dragon glass going into the White Walkers, and they essentially were an army to defeat men. So this new army that has come together and has been, plaguing Jon Snow, and that we all know is coming to essentially kill everyone, this unspeakable evil, was created in a response to men. Kind of an ironic circumstance which is happening here. So that was a really, really cool revelation. And I do like that this season we're starting to get answers. And Bran has been kind of the way of saying, okay, we've been here for 6 seasons. Now it's time to pull back the curtain a little bit, kind of get into really starting to reveal some secrets that have been long, long dormant. Still haven't gotten any info on Jon Snow and who his mother is, but I have a feeling by the end of the season we're going to get that. Then we went over into the Iron Islands, and you have Yara kind of claiming the Iron Islands for herself, and Theon stepping up to the plate and saying, and I was worried for a second that he was going to be like, man, I'm Theon Greyjoy. I don't got a wiener anymore, but I think I can do it. But no, he kind of speaks for his sister, saying how great she is. And then you have Euron Greyjoy, who of course is Balon's brother, who kills him in the first episode of the season, throws him off the bridge, admits to it, and then is like, basically, my plan is to go hook up with Daenerys, get her dragons with my navy, and we're just going to go conquer the world. So it's interesting that we're seeing other characters now, especially people from the Iron Islands, which we haven't even paid attention to for many, many seasons. Dany's reputation is starting to really get out there. And you don't hear kind of Dany's name being mentioned too often with other characters on different parts of the world. But it was cool to kind of see that here. And, you have the drowning ritual, which I have to say, I feel like that could go really, really wrong really quick, in that you're not giving the guy CPR. Like, how many kings had to die? They were like, man, this guy is the chosen one. He's great. He's going to rule us. All right, drink some water. Let's see what happens. Man, they didn't come back to life. Well, that's really unfortunate. Like, how many people died just to get to that point? It seems like we need a little updating in the whole, let's see if the sea god is going to choose a king by drowning them to death. And then bring him back to life, because what is dead may never die. Then you also, of course, and Yara and Theon wind up fleeing after that, and rightfully so, because Euron is going to come and kill them. Then you have Jorah, which was a very touching, emotional scene. Jorah showing Dany that he has, of course, grayscale, saying that he's not sure if there is a cure, and it finally admits to Dany that he loves her. And this is a 6-season, like, I know that I feel like his storyline has kind of dropped off a little bit. We didn't have as much invested anymore. I've been a fan of Jorah for quite some time. And this is a big moment for his character, and finally admitting to this woman who's had a power over him for 6 seasons that he finally loves her. And Dany thankfully finally reciprocates and is like, hey, you made a vow to me. You need to go fix yourself, because when I take over the world, I need you there too. And it was just kind of like, she cares. She loves him. All right, maybe not love him, but it was a really kind of nice reciprocation from Dany. And at that point, I was really hoping Jorah would be like, man, hey, Dario, and like wiping his wrist all over him and being like, oh, looks like we got to get a cure now. No sleeping with Dany while I'm gone. So that was a pretty cool moment. And then we saw I think that two of the most powerful characters in this show are Littlefinger and Varys, because of the amount of information that they have over people, and information is power. And Littlefinger, as we just talked about, kind of gets speechless against Sansa, and then Varys, when we were meeting the new Red Priestess, she's the first Red Priestess, and she, right off the bat, she calls Dany the Chosen One. And this was a great scene, because Varys kind of calls her out on it and is like, hey, there's another Red Priestess that said Stannis was the Chosen One. He lost in the Battle of Blackwater, and now he just got killed. So this entire Chosen One thing, it just seems like, oh man, I wasn't right the first time, but this time I'm definitely right. Kind of attacking religion and attacking these fanatics, as he calls them. And then in a very creepy scene, the Red Priestess kind of walks up to him and says, I know everything about you. And when you were snipped and they threw your parts into the fire, you heard a voice. I can tell you what that voice means. And you see the look on Varys' face, like, how, okay, you know what? Maybe we should just be friends and we should be good. So Varys, also another extremely powerful character, winds up becoming speechless out of this. So she's going to be an interesting character. And now that they're kind of jumping on the Dany bandwagon of her being the chosen one, which again makes sense. I mean, she literally, as they said, born from fire, just lit herself on fire in the last episode, has dragons, whole 9 yards. Makes sense. Lord of Light is going to be Dany. But we'll see with that. And then we get to the idea of what happens with Bran. Bran decides to get bored, throw like a piece of bone or rock at the three-eyed raven. Is like, hey, you up, man? I want to go out and play, but you're sleeping. Decides to go in solo in a very, very tense scene where he is at the same tree where the White Walkers are created. And you can actually see that symbol that was made with like the tombstones where the White Walkers were first created was also created by the White Walkers. I think it was back in season 2 or 3 with all the dead horses when they killed the Night's Watch, like when they killed that patrol. So that symbol pops up again, and Bran goes in solo. And he's walking through, and again, nobody can see him, and then he comes face to face with the Night King, and the Night King sees him, and the entire army turns around and sees him, and the Night King grabs his wrist and leaves a mark, alerting the three-eyed raven that now Bran is not safe, because now whatever magic was kind of over that cave protecting him from the Night King and the White Walkers, now the Night King has kind of infiltrated what is going, the cave itself. So a very tense moment, and the three-eyed raven's like, we're out of time. Like, I need you to become me now. And Bran's like, oh, okay. I mean, am I ready for this? He's like, no, you are not. This was a really stupid decision. And if Bran just waited and wasn't impatient, I mean, dude, it's been 6 seasons. You could wait a little bit longer. But he jumped right into it, and they're gonna suffer the consequences. Now, before we get to that finale, I just need to mention this. Brienne and Tormund, absolutely. First, Brienne mentions Tormund. Yes, fantastic. And then you have the fantastic scene where they're getting on the horse, and Tormund is looking at Brienne, and he gives that smile. Best part of the episode, 10 out of 10, no doubt. The only kind of ray of happiness in the entire episode before everything collapses, everything dies, everything turns black, and it's just sadness every 5 seconds. So the Night King attack. So Three-Eyed Raven and Bran, they're kind of they're under. They go back to the scene where there's Hodor, there's Lyanna, kind of a young Ned Stark, and the Three-Eyed Raven's just trying to give Bran all this information, and the Night King and his entire army is outside in a very scary scene. You see the Children of the Forest, they're bombing people, they're throwing bombs, but the Night King kind of walks right through their barriers. And then all of the Whites, which are like their zombie army skeleton guys, are breaking through the ceiling. It's turning bad really, really quick. They're trying to wake Bran up. They are unsuccessful. Bran wargs into Hodor's mind in the past, gets Hodor to kind of get them moving. And then you have Summer, Bran's direwolf, which is now the second puppy to die this season. Can we not just have a nice, happy puppy ending? Why do the puppies have to die? I never like when puppies die. Ever. So, damn it, puppy! So, Summer dies, saving Bran. Extremely upsetting. A lot of Children of the Forest dying. They're trying to escape. The Night King walks up to the Three-Eyed Raven. Done. There's not even a dialogue there. He's just killed. So, the Three-Eyed Raven has just been murdered by the Night King. And then you have this scene where where they get to the end of the door and they open it. They're trying to open it. And then Bran winds up escaping, and Hodor is holding back the door. And you see in the past that that Hodor hears this hold the door. Bran wargs into him again. He starts having a seizure. And you have Willis, who is this kid who could talk and everything like that, starts saying, hold the door, hold the door, hold the door. And it starts becoming Hodor, Hodor, Hodor. So Bran is responsible for creating Hodor, essentially, and killing Willis. And you also have Hodor sacrificing himself, holding the door for Bran so they can get away. Um, a really a really emotional episode, and I'm gonna, if I had to give this a rating, this is like a 9.5. I'd have to watch it again. You know what? Yeah, I'd give it like a 9.5 or even a full-blown 10. It's really close to a 10. Like, I'll cut the difference and make it a 9.7. That was a really emotional episode. And again, it kind of just shows that the Night King is the real evil in this world. While, listen, we have terrible things going on with the Lannisters and Cersei and the Faith Militant and Iron Island. Like, you have bad things going on in this world, but it's nothing compared to what is coming for them. And it ain't winter. It's the Night King and all the death that comes along with it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week. I know I'm looking forward to it. If you have any questions or anything like that, let me know in the comments. What did you think of this week's episode? Got a little hashtag RIP Hodor going on, of course. If you like this, please subscribe, like, comment, do whatever you gotta do. I'm Tom Grossi. This has been another episode of Game of Thrones. RIP Hodor.